today's broadcast.
Just, sometimes anytime you see relationships, you think it's about marriage, but it's not about marriage. It's about every relationship, work relationships, family relationships, friend relationships, teams, being a part of teams. It's about every aspect. And we've covered some things. We've covered boundaries and some other things. But today, I think we talked about the heart last week. Mm-hmm. Wednesday, we hit, what did we talk about Wednesday?
Boundaries. I think it was boundaries.
Oh, it was Q&A Wednesday. Right. We did a Q&A on Wednesday. And today, and 9:15, we break it down more, and then we'll have a discussion here at 10:30. But we talked about communication earlier today. And we really had a good time, good exchange. People gave some good insight, some good realizations. But we talked about, just briefly before we get into what we're going to talk about here in a minute, we had talked about, there's two different genders. Mm. And, generally, foundationally, the women are emotional. That doesn't mean women don't have logic. You got some, because of how we are raised, sometimes we have to take a little charge more than others. But at a core, God made women to have emotion. When he says honor them as the weaker vessel, he's not saying they can't lift as many weights, run as many miles, work as hard, achieve as many goals. What he's saying is, I equip them with emotion because somebody gotta almost connect to me right away. Somebody gotta be sensitive to what's happening outside of the logical way of doing things. And men as a core, now obviously we have men that are emotional. I was back there crying on them, moving forward. All right, so one of the gentlemen that called in from Ohio yesterday, the guy talk, he was saying, that what about people like me? He said, because I could be an emotional guy. But his core foundation, we're logical. If there's a tension, we're going to lean to logic. But for us to have a healthy communication or conversation, so if I'm having a healthy conversation with my wife, she's going to come in with emotions. I have to calm her down for her to receive with affection. So my first thought has to be affection, being sensitive to what she's feeling. But what's my natural response? Logic. Like, that doesn't make sense because, it's emotional or it's how you feel. And I'm going, again, I'm about to break it down. But I have to go to affection first. If I go to logic, I'm going to add fuel to the fire. We about to be arguing. And that's not just relationship, that's people you work with and stuff like that. You have to understand people's core. Same thing with me. Let's say if I have a concern and she responds right away with, emotion, she's going to add fuel to the fire because I'm logical. So her first thought and reaction has to be to understand. All right, so now you done calm down my logic. I can even receive the emotions better, right? But normally we trigger what's our thirst, not the other person. Now, again, we talked about this just to have effective communication and being having real, authentic communication. We talked about this morning having authentic communication, and so a person can see your level of agreement and commitment without trying. It's like automatic. You're committed, and we're in agreement. Right, and that's effective communication because the goal is for us to be on the same page, not for me to be right, because, in relationships, sometimes we can get into competitiveness and competition versus communion and covenant. We could just be talking just for the sake of, okay, you always think you're right, well, I'm going to prove I'm right this time. That's a competition. But if we really trying to win together, the song y'all sang was, what is it? About winning. You will win. If we trying to win together, the goal is, whoa, let's get on the same page. Right? So that's whether it's family, whether it's workers, some of us have played for teams, whether it's teams. All that stuff is for us to flow together. Did you have a thought?
Yeah, I think it's important that we get that because all of us really want to be heard. We really do. And we spend a lot of time trying to be heard. But the problem is if you don't apply what he's talking about, it really leaves an area for misunderstanding. So, the thing about it is I know what I want to say. I know how I feel. But the challenge is if I don't understand who I'm talking to, like females, we know each other, right? We feel each other, right? And when I talk to my husband, it's like they had a book out called Men Are From Mars. Do y'all remember that book? I didn't read it, but
the women was like,
I understood the concept there. So, but one thing I'm learning to do is to really be mindful of his makeup. See, he talked about gender differences, and I'm sure we'll get into it eventually. But it's important that we understand just because the way we are, the way we feel, what we believe is going to be totally different from the person that you're talking to. But if you don't embrace that, then you will get offended every single time. Every single time. And the enemy loves nothing better but to get us in offense, because he knows if I can get this couple in offense, if I can get your coworkers in offense, if I could get you guys to not be in agreement, all of us to be in agreement, then he knows that, see, there's power in agreement, right? And so we have to actually go in to relating to people based on their gender difference. And so that you can really, really facilitate some understanding, because that's ultimately what the goal is to get understanding. You know what I mean? Because if you don't effectively communicate, what is that? Miscommunicate. You've missed an opportunity to communicate effectively. And so I was talking about earlier this morning, I talked about Adam and Eve, and it all kind of started there with Adam and Eve. God told Adam, he said, do not eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Remember that? And so he got the message, and Eve, I'm sure she was told the same thing. Well, what did Eve do? She did not listen to what was communicated to her. And so, and we're going to talk about this later, but taking responsibility in a relationship. In your communication, take responsibility. Because what Eve did was, when God said, okay, so why did you eat of the tree? And she said, well, the serpent told me to eat of the tree. So what did she do? She blamed the serpent, as opposed to saying, well, you know what, I didn't listen to you. You see that taking responsibility. Then God came to Adam. So Adam, why did you eat of that tree? He said, well, the wife you gave me. See what I'm saying? So it's all started back then. And so we have to take responsibility in the way we communicate. We have to take responsibility in the way we listen. And we'll talk about that. Listening is so important. That is probably the biggest, I won't even say probably, that is the biggest thing in communication is listening. And some of us are so wired up that we want to get our thought, we want to get our mind, we want to get what we want to say, point across. We want to do that quickly, and we are impatient when a person's trying to break down. And we'll talk about what you talked about earlier, but that's a good example of that, where we really are impatiently communicating. We have to use patient communication, because I'm telling you, there has been plenty of times that me and Pastor Keith will be talking in a discussion, right? Especially in a heated discussion. In a heated discussion, it's like, okay, hurry up, get it. Matter of fact, I'm not even listening. I'm just waiting for look. I'm listening, but I'm listening for my opportunity to jump in. You know what I'm saying? I'm not listening to everything he's saying. So that's not good. That's just not good. And so it takes patience to allow the person, and he's pretty long-winded. So I mean, he could be like what Kalina talked about, how she loves giving an example of why she does what she does, just so the person can understand. Now, I do that too, but he has a lot of explanation, and so I have to sit there and I have to wait, and I'm like, okay, when is this going to be finished already? Like, like I got the point, especially if he's trying to really hone in on a particular point that he thinks that I don't have. I'm like, oh Jesus, look, I want to pull my hair out, I want to run, I want to scream. I get so impatient, and I feel myself really getting impatient about the thing. And I know I probably look like I don't know what I look like. You could probably speak to that, but I'm sure if what I'm feeling on the inside look like, but I'm sure it doesn't lend for a healthy situation. So just wanted to bring that out.
All right, so what she said was she brought up patient communication, and we talked about that earlier, and we went to James 1, so we'll go to James 1, verse 19. James chapter 1, verse 19. It's a familiar scripture, but we'll tie it into what we're talking about here. James 1, 19, it says, wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear. Pastor Mel talked about listening, and slow to speak and slow to wrath. And let's go over to James chapter 3. James chapter 3. This is a scripture we'll be using a lot as we talk about communication. Verse 17. It says, but wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, easy to be entreated, so it's easily absorbed, right? Full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. Another scripture in Romans 2:7, it talks about having patient continuance. And this is the thing, like, it takes a lot of patience to, listen to this phrase, talk it through. So, and the thing is, when you, let's say, okay, so I've shared this before, so this is common knowledge. If my wife says, honey, I need to talk to you about something. Well, I'm gritting my teeth because I'm about to hear either a truth or something that's rubbing her the wrong way that I may have an understanding for, but whether I have an understanding or a logic about it, that doesn't change the impact. See what I'm saying? So I gotta grit my teeth and go, okay, well, I'm about to hear something true. I gotta handle this right now. There's times I do well at it, but there's times when, even though I'm gritting my teeth, my man of 1,000 characters, I'm showing all these facial expressions that I don't even know I'm displaying. So let's say if it's something that doesn't make no sense to me, I might be showing that on my face, but I don't know it. I'm thinking, see, I'm doing the way you're taught. I'm listening, and I'm letting her talk herself through. But the whole time, my face is like, are you serious? You got to be kidding me. Oh, really? Once again, I don't know all these things. I find out, obviously. Excuse me. And so now she has to patiently talk through the man of 1,000 faces. I have to be patient enough to hear her through and to really try to understand where she's coming from. And the thing is, we've grown to do better at it. But remember she gave the example because Kalina brought it up earlier that she's a teacher. She's been a teacher, so she would break stuff down and almost to a point where her husband's like, okay, I got it. Well, now some of that is the person's like, okay, that's enough. But some of it is you're giving me about 7 angles to tell me something I ain't want to hear the first angle. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it's something about me. Like, I ain't did okay, I got it, brother. And I don't want to hear even though, because sometimes the reflex may be, I don't know what you're talking about. So then now you're going to go into another 10 ways of explaining so you can get this. But now that person is going, no. My comeback was, I don't want to really hear this. And so you got to keep talking it through where I got to adjust my package. She got to be receptive. She has to adjust her package. We have to be receptive. But we don't want to talk it through because we don't want to talk about it because it's an imperfection. It's neither one of us wants to disappoint one another. So in the early years, Mr. Break It Down, because I worked in corrections. And so working in corrections, to get these kids to understand, these youth to understand, you had to break it down, break it down, break it down. I worked in maximum security for youth. And so sometimes I used to bring the guy from work at home. So now I'm breaking it down where Aunt can understand it. Aunt's baby can understand it. You know? And so my wife is like, dude, like, I'm not a child. You know, but that was my reflex. So then one day the Lord had to show me, because I'm thinking, well, I'm just giving you an understanding, so there's no way you can not know what I'm talking about. And one day I was talking to her, and God shows me stuff in visions. And I was talking to her, so let's say it hurt. She doesn't like disappoint me. So her reflex was, man, I'm disappointing him. But it came across as a justification. So I'll go, okay, well, so let's say that was her escape route. So picture a room full of exits, windows, doors. Well, I shut down that exit. So then she had another response, shut down that one. Another response, I shut down that one. So after a while, I done closed all the exits. There's no way out for her. And so she's backed into a corner. Now the Lord gave me this visual. You ever seen the cartoons with the big, not sledgehammers, but they had the big hammers? So he showed me now my words were beating her down. And then he asked me a question. He says, is your point worth you hurting your wife like that? Scared the life out of me. I was like, no, I love her. I'm not trying to be right at the expense of her hurt. So I had to understand that my point or my logic can't be more valuable than the person I care about. So I have to adjust the package, or sometimes I have to back off. And listen, I offered the information, let God in her quiet time implant it or give her the insight and the revelation. Because she'd be like, let's go away. Let's table this for another time. I'm a resolved person. Table it? No, that means we're gonna talk about it again? Oh no, if we take the 4 o'clock in the morning, we're gonna find out what the problem is. But you can't do that. You're forcing someone into an exchange. You know, you have to be patient. Now I'm telling you this because I've learned it. But in the early years, if she went to the bathroom, I'll follow her. I'd be outside the door. You know, then I didn't know what I was thinking. I was just talking like to get her to come out. I'd be like, okay, well, if you ain't open the door, I'll come through the door. But she's on the other side going, he's gonna come through the door? What kind of violent man is this? I ain't coming through no door. I'm figuring, you know, I'm doing the corrections thing. I'm trying to bluff you, you know, like, you know, we had to get the kids out the cell. So, you know, we would bluff them, just come up with stuff, because you can't put your hands on them. We're not supposed to put your hands on them, right? So I'm trying to come up with bluffs, but I'm scaring her even more. And the Lord had to show me, Keith, you don't bother you, but you got to realize your impact. And so when he showed me my impact, it scared me. I was like, yeah, I probably could be intimidating. So I had to make some adjustments. I'm not letting her off the hook. I have to take responsibility for the adjustments I had to make. So that's patient communication. Had to package it. Easy to me and treated. We'll talk about that when we get into catchable language. But did you have a thought about that? No. Before we get into the next thing? All right, so we talked through that earlier, and some people have some thoughts and questions they may share later. We have to have proper timing. Sometimes it's just proper timing. You know, the scripture says in Ecclesiastes 3, there's a time for everything. To everything there's a season, there's a time for every purpose, right? So everything is subject to change, but there's timing when things are purposeful, and sometimes it's just the proper timing. You have to recognize the windows, you know, that's healthy, you know, creating an environment where it's not threatening, you know. Sometimes we just attack, you know, because we're thinking about ourselves. I'm going to get into these 3 stages, and you jump in after I do the three things?
No, yeah, that's fine.
You sure?
It was just one thing I wanted to mention.
Yes.
You know, a lot of times when there's an issue at hand, the best time to deal with things that are very uncomfortable is not when things are on the line. I'll say that because I'm telling you, if you do it when there's a heat on the situation, it's not going to go off really good. But if you, let's say you're just, having a great day, some people be like, well, I don't want to mess that up. We having a good day. No, but that's really the best time to do it because you're not all up here, ready to explode. It's a casual type of an environment. It's a welcoming, a comfortable more environment than when there's stress. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes it's important to just kind of table some things until it's not on the line. Things aren't on the line. Go ahead.
All right, so we're going to hit 3 types of communicating, or not 3. We'll hit a couple types, but we'll hit these 3 as the foundation. And that's assertiveness. Some people from our premarital courtship probably remembers this. Active listening, assertiveness, active listening, and catchable language. Now, I know catchable is probably not in the dictionary, but you'll understand it when it's explained. Your assertiveness is speaking the truth in love. But you're speaking the truth in love this way. I know some of you are taking notes, and so I'll try to take my time so you can get it. It's speaking the truth in love. But it's sharing how you feel versus forming assumptions and attacking because of how you feel. Sharing how you feel versus forming assumptions and attacking based on how you feel. So in other words, let's say if you expected your spouse to remember something and they didn't remember. Well, you can share, this is how this affected me when you didn't remember, versus you don't care about me, that's why you didn't remember. Well, you just started an argument because that's an assumption. That's an assumed intent. The person cares about you. They just forgot. But they can't argue with the effect. If it affected you a certain way, man, I feel like I don't matter. Now you're giving a person an opportunity to share how much you do matter. But you gotta trust them in what's coming out their mouth. So we gotta watch the assumed intent. And how do you know when you're assuming an intent? When you've got mad first. You never shared the effect. You just got mad. So you just wanted to be mad. You didn't give a person a chance to know how they affected you. See, we talked about this last Wednesday. I know I do this. My wife works to do this. We go into conversations with this thought. Maybe they didn't know. So some of you may feel like you've done us wrong or you did things wrong. And then I'll ask questions. I'm asking questions because I'm assuming maybe they didn't know. Are you aware that when you did this, it had this effect? Are you aware when you did this, it affected me this way? As opposed to going into the conversation, you knew what you did. You just don't care. You're selfish. You're this. When you start doing that, get ready for a debate. Yeah, not a debate. Get ready for an argument. A person can always defend your assumption of their intent. What they can't defend is the effect, how it actually affected them. Did you have a thought about that before I go into active listening? You sure? All right, so active listening is probably more obvious. It's listening more than speaking. All right, we mentioned that in James. And so as my wife is talking, I'm actually listening. And the way she knows I'm listening remember she said in the early years she was waiting for me to finish? Well, how I know she's listening? When she opened her mouth, she's communicating. She's not saying, oh, so what you were saying is this. Oh, let me get this. Let me see if I really understand what you're trying to say. I know you're listening. Now, after if she's communicated, after I've said, so babe, are you trying to say this? Or is this what your thought is? And then I come back with, okay, well, this is what I was thinking about it. She can receive better because she know I heard her. But if I just jump right in, okay, hurry up, and then I jump right into my point, how does she know I was even listening? But see, it takes patience to take the time to absorb the information, regurgitate what the person said, and then communicate your thought on it. I want to understand you before I want to defend myself. So that's assertiveness and active listening. Any thoughts about that before I get into?
Yeah, now that can be a bit much for some people because you know, especially if you're talking to a long-winded person, you know, they could spend 5 minutes on one point. And so and there's been times when it overwhelms me where I would say to him, okay, listen, I really want to understand you. So can we do this? I want you to say your point. Give me 1 point at a time. Because this is overwhelming me. And I don't, you know, I really want to be able to lock in. And that's the thing. Really, I am learning more. I'm not saying that I've gotten it down pat, but I'm learning more to lock in. See, it's important for us to lock in when we start to communicate with people, because if you don't lock in, you're going to miss some things. And oftentimes he would say, so what did I say? Now, this is after 10 minutes or 15 minutes of him talking. And so I'm like, well, and I feel so bad because I can't even regurgitate one thing that he said because I'm so overwhelmed. I've allowed myself to get so overwhelmed with, you know how sometimes you can have some type of, I don't know, flaw. Let's just say focus. It might be a flaw. And you say to yourself, man, I just have a challenge with focusing. But every time God will actually put you in a position where you're having to focus. Why? Because what he's trying to do is get you away from seeing yourself as one that cannot focus. Yeah. And so for a long time, it was hard for me to like listen to him for 15 minutes and he might have had 25 points. And when he comes back and asks me, so what did I say? I would get offended. And I'm going to tell you why I got offended. I got offended because I'm thinking to myself, you know I don't know what you said. And you put me on the spot. You put me on the spot to prove that I was not listening. And so... And that happened a lot, y'all. It happened a lot. So I said to myself, and I told him, I said, so what I think I might end up doing, I'm going to write some stuff down as you talk. So are you okay with that? You know, so as he's talking, I think I did it 1 or 2 times. That was short-lived. I didn't do it, but I did try it. I said, okay, because I really want to lock in. And so, but it's important, y'all, that we really, really lock in. And you lock in by yielding what you have to say, because we all got solutions and options. We really do. But yield to what the person's saying, listen to the whole thing in its entirety, and then come back. I don't know what it is about us that feels like we have to rush. Mm-hmm. We gotta rush. You want to hear what I got to say. Well, yeah, it's okay. Let's take our time. It's not like we gotta finish this conversation in 2 minutes. You know, and discussing something that really should take a half hour or more. So, but locking in is important. We got to lock into what the person is saying, because if you're not locking in, you have locked yourself out of what the person's really saying, and you're only locked into what you're about to say, and it's not going to be good at all.
And you know, and the thing is, you have to be willing to give what you desire. You know, the thing is, like, you know, even some people that they may say, well, you know, I shut down quick, or I get overwhelmed quick. They expect the other person not to be overwhelmed and not to shut down quick. And sometimes it's a focus in our reception, but it's also sometimes a focus in our delivery. So it's easy for us to assess, let's say that person took 15 minutes, but we haven't gauged the time that we're communicating. We may take 15 minutes, but we expect the person to understand it, to understand each point, and then we'll come back with, you know, as we talk, my wife will say, so what did I say? Now, again, our design is different. If you're talking, I'm listening. So I'm actually saying, well, you said this. Now I'm overwhelming her in explaining. She was like, well, I done got lost in what I was saying. Well, you started out saying this, then you said this. Like, some of y'all been around me. So I said, well, you started out saying, then you said this, and then after you said that, you said this. So how we got to this point was, and then she's like, well, you overwhelming me even explaining that. But what I am is I'm paying attention. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, the thing is, that's what I'm saying. It takes patient communication, because we all have to be sensitive to the different levels we are. And that's what active listening is. You know, active listening is really paying it like I don't care the kids. Y'all see me sometimes with the kids. If they start talking, I'm listening because they saying something for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not insignificant. So I'll just be listening to everything, and then you'll watch me, and I'll start asking them questions. So wait a minute, are you saying this, that, and the other? You know. So I've had to. I'm gonna practice it even when I'm not in a heated situation. So it's just a part of my life, listening to people, because that's how you learn. I think people are important, and I don't think other people don't think people are important. But as Stella was saying early, sometimes you're in situations where people train you a certain way. So it's not like you're shutting down because you don't care. You're shutting down because really you never had to listen. You know, some people have been raised, you know, could be you're the all-American child, so everything you do is right, you know, to a certain point because you're an achiever. So no one's never challenged you. So now that you're challenged, you're like, you're not used to it because everybody's pretty much endorsing everything you do. Or you could be the little princess. Or the little princess, no matter what, that is cute. So you're not really addressed. You just a little cute princess. So the little princess should be heard, should be listened to, and everybody should pay attention to the little princess. But the little princess hasn't been thinking about nobody. Never considered nobody, so it's easy for the little princess to be overwhelmed. You see what I'm saying? But that's not a crime. It's just learning that we have to grow, get beyond being a little princess, get beyond being an all-American or who's wonderful, and actually care to listen. Because we want people to do what? Care to listen. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So, and then the other part that we wanted to share was, I'm sorry, I didn't give you the scripture. The scripture says, Philippians 2:3, it says, esteem others better than yourself. Look not every man on his own things, but look every man on the things of others. So if I'm in conversation, the whole conversation, Philippians 2:3 and 4. The whole conversation is about me hearing my wife. Because I'm thinking I'm esteeming her better than me. Let's be honest. Some people aren't worth listening to us. But we think we should be worth listening to all the time. See, that's dangerous. And think about it. Do you care to listen? If you're honest with yourself, because some of us never had. Stephanie was sharing earlier. She's like, listen, once I give you this, just do it. So that's how we rolling. Like, but, you know, she shared this transparently. But if you were giving her instruction like, ain't nobody got time for that. That's throwing off my desires. But see, that's not fair. You're not esteeming others better than yourself. Others aren't as important as you are yourself. Bear ye one another's burdens. So that means I have to actually bear the weight of listening to what's weighing that person down at this particular time. I have to care. Do you have a thought about that before I get into catchable?
Yeah, no, I think that was good. I think where we probably have had challenges in the area of communication is even it starts at a child's age, like you kind of brought that out. And I think, you know, some of us, you know, were told to shut up, you know, go get away from me. You know, you don't know what you're talking about. You remember, you know,
go to your room.
Go to your room, you know. And but what we don't understand is we're literally training them not to be able to effectively communicate. Yeah. Because sometimes people, I think it was Trina was talking about, you know, if you've been labeled a certain kind of way, like, you know, the way the person's talking to you as if you are not intellect, you don't have any intellect, then that person, it's so easy for them to shut down and not share because they're looked at a certain kind of way. Yeah. So as a child, you really want to, especially you parents out there, you really want to pay attention to your kids. When you say, you know, you're talking to somebody and you say, okay, give me a minute. Now you're telling a 6-year-old, give me a minute.
That's like 5 hours.
That's like 10 10 minutes for a 6-year-old. And then, wait a minute, you don't even go back to him or her and say, well, I appreciate you waiting patiently. Now what is it that you want to talk about? Oftentimes, y'all, we keep it moving. You don't even go back to the child. So what is that saying to the kid? The kid is saying, wow, you don't value me. Like, man, I had something to say. So it starts at a young age, and if you don't have children right now at a young age, how you respond to the kids here, at the church, is important. Usually when you see a kid, how you see a kid and the kid's talking to you and you're like, yeah, and you're moving on to the next thing. That's disrespectful. And we're teaching them, because most things that we all learn is either taught or caught. And a lot of stuff is caught. So if your kid comes to you and you are saying, okay, yeah, or you're not even, you don't stop and look, how we just, go ahead, talk to me, and you're still doing the dishes or you're doing whatever, that's not really giving that child full attention, and you're training that person, it's okay. So when they become an adult, they're actually flowing that way.
That's good. So
we got to make sure that we are connecting at a young age. And if you miss the opportunity with your kids that you got now, start doing it now. You still can do it now. But you should always stop. Because if I talk to you, Stella, and somebody came up to you, you wouldn't just play me off and start talking to her. You would say, okay, Pastor Melanie, okay, give me a minute. I'll be right back with you, okay? And then that minute, when you talk to her, you're conscious that, okay, I told her a minute, so I'm going to, hey, listen, I told her a minute. I'll get right back to you. You see what I'm saying? It's just courtesy, common courtesy. But we have to do that with the small children, because I'm telling you, we live in a day and age where we have not been taught how to effectively communicate.
I jump in there?
Yeah.
Now, this may be humbling, but it's true. Some of your kids intellectually are smarter than you. I just repeat that. Some of the kids are intellectually smarter than us. They may not have wisdom, but that doesn't mean they're not smart. Now, the tough part is some of you know your kids are smart.
Sit down with your smart mouth.
So some of you shut the kids down because because of, it's a book called The Search for Significance. Some of y'all shut your kids down because you're trying to drink significance, and your significance is, oh, I can always pull the authority card. I'm your daddy.
Parent immunity.
You ain't, that's how you pull out parent immunity. I'm the daddy. You gonna listen to me. When I was younger, I know this is on video, but when I was younger, you guys know I was raised with foster parents, so, but I'm a cerebral guy. We probably done figured that out too. And I'm an exhaustive thinker. Pastor Mel done told you that. So when I came to the family, I would just say what I saw. Like, if there was a problem, God made me a problem solver. So I'm the guy that looks at the maze, and I can tell you the first path through it. I don't need 7 tries. So I came to the family, like, if my dad said, I don't know how we going to do this. I said, well, Dad, we can just do this. Oh, you got a smart mouth, don't you? I was like, huh? You presented a problem. I came up with the answer. But my father's, the way he was raised, you're a child. Stay in your place. You're not supposed to come up with the solution. I am. And so I'm confused because I'm trying to help. So watch shutting the kids down because they figured out something that you hadn't been able to. Show them humility, because everybody in the house has to have voices and choices. And I know it was more so back in the day. Sometimes it's now too. Some parents have, because of the struggles that they went through, coming out of slavery and different things like that. A lot of people they just had to get a job. They had no time for education. So they weren't stupid. They just didn't keep their education stimulated. But that doesn't mean they feel adequate all the time. And kids don't have wisdom. Like, I'll use me. I ain't had no wisdom. I'm just bust you out. Like, oh, well, we can just do that. You know what I'm saying? But I could have, if wisdom would have been, you probably already considered this, Dad, but what about this one over here? What do you think about that? You know, like making sure he still had his authority, but offering the consideration, which I do now with everybody. Back then I wasn't offering no consideration. I was like, no, this is what we need to do right now. And we need to do this now. We want to get out this mess. You know, you see what I'm saying? So kids don't have wisdom, but they have intellect. And so it's kind of, you might have to teach them how to serve you. Yes. Here, offer to me because I am your parent. So maintain your reverence, but you have every right to offer and then trust, let me make a decision based on what you're offering. We do that in our house. We offer considerations. Mm-hmm. You know, now the person can say, hey, that's cool or not. So is that?
No, that's real good. I think it's important to teach them how to, because, you know, it's not enough to just say, don't do this, you know, but to really break down to them.
Represent it.
Yeah, to how do you offer? So even when you say offer it, well, they don't know what that means. So you got to break that down. So, you know, it's important that we expect them to be a certain kind of way, but then we don't give them what they need to be the way that you expect them.
And don't reflect it sometimes.
Yeah,
also.
and it's unfair. It's a setup.
All right, so the third phase we gave you was catchable language. Mm-hmm. And, you know, again, we read James chapter 3, verse 17. It says, wisdom from above is first peaceable. It says, no, it's first pure, then peaceable. Easy to be entreated, easy to absorb, without partiality and full of mercy. So what it's saying is, remember we said there's a lot of us that have intellect, but we may not have wisdom. So just because you're right, just because you understand doesn't mean you're packaging it in a way it could be absorbed. So a part of offering stuff, wisdom helps you to offer it, helps a person to easily absorb it. Mm-hmm. So we know if it came from God. So like as a child, I had to learn how to filter my communication through God. When I was a child, I just give it to you straight. Like just knowing what's right and not being able to harmonize with the people around you has no value. Can two walk together unless they be agreed? Amos 3:3. So wisdom is the key to making sure whether you're young, whether you old, if you grab wisdom, everybody can hear you. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to just be right. You want to be not just heard, but absorbed. So we use the phrase make it catchable. I'll give you this other scripture, Proverbs 15:1. It says, a soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. Mm. So your package is important. Mm-hmm. So when we say catchable language, again, I know everybody doesn't play sports, so I try to do this the best I can, understanding that, but I was a point guard in college. And then when I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, in that culture, I was taught different. So like if we passed the ball to you, if it hit your hands, our philosophy, you should have caught it. And we all catch an attitude, man, catch the ball. So I had to learn, no matter how they threw it, I better catch it, or they're going to kick me off the court. I get to college, I'm throwing rifle passes through 4 or 5 people, so I'm figuring I'm sweet. I threw that through 5 people, hit the guy's hands, he drop it, and I catch an attitude, run down the court, man, you should have caught that. Coach pulled me to the side and said, Keith, it's your job to make the pass catchable. He said, some people don't have quick recognition. If you throw them a bounce pass, they can hear it bounce and see it into their hands. They heard it, and then they had a chance to react to it. He said, some people got soft hands, Keith. He said, you got to give it to them at the last minute. So I would dribble down, last minute I would drop. We had this guy, I'm not going to say who it is, but we had this guy, he had soft hands. I would drop it into his hands at the last minute, just lay it in there. And he could finish, but if I threw it to him early, he would drop it every time. But I had a guy, he lives out in Monroe now. Best hands in the world. I could throw him to it any time, any way, as hard as I could. He was like glue. He just knew how to catch. So I had to adjust my delivery for the reception. Your kids, as they've been growing up, some of you that have younger kids, you don't throw the ball to the younger kids the way you would an older kid. What do? You throw it underhanded. Why? You want them to catch it. But you can throw it, like I can throw it to Nate right now. I can zip him a pass. He's going to catch it. You know, some cornerback skills. He's going to catch it. But I'm not throwing it to Ace the same way I throw it to Nate because I want him to catch it. Communication the same way. Do you want people to catch it? Or because you threw it in truth, or because you threw it and you were right, well, you should understand it because I said it. No. If they didn't get it, now you have to keep adjusting it where it's easy to be absorbed. The goal is for people to absorb the information, not just for us to be right.
That's good. So it's important that you choose the right words. You know, the words that come out of our mouth can either bring life to a situation or it can kill it. And so, you know, the scripture talks about life and death is in the power of the tongue. And so when you don't understand that small member that's in our mouth can literally either make or break a situation, you will find yourself really in a really bad pickle. I'll say a pickle. So, you know, we have to really take responsibility for the words that are coming out of my mouth. Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? I just felt that seemed fitting right there. But we do. We have to watch what we say because there, you know, words. Your words is a container, and so it goes into like a container, and so those words, man, can permeate in your being and shake the core of who you are forever. Like, how many of y'all have heard a word, somebody said something about you, and to this day, like, I'll give you for instance, my mother wanted me to change the television station on our television. Now, back in the day, we didn't have no remote control. It was one of those things where it's like a dial. And it was probably about, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 dials on this television. And I was about maybe 5 or 6 years old. And she said, Melanie, turn the television up. So I went and I attempted to do it. Not that girl. And then she's hollering at me. Now, when the first holler came, it paralyzed me. You know how you get when it's like, okay, I don't know what to do. So I just started turning buttons. I mean, and so she said to me, she said, you stupid. She said, you stupid. And so I didn't realize that thing crushed me. So years later, fast forward, I'm in a marriage with him. We in one of our little blowouts. I'm behind the door because I shut down the communication. I'm behind the door and with the door locked, okay? And because I had enough and I didn't really want to finish the conversation. You know what he said? He said, that's stupid. I interpret it as I'm stupid. And I'm telling you, my feelings.
For a long time, boy.
My feelings, y'all. I mean, I was crushed. I said, he just called me stupid. I mean, I was crushed. I mean, probably, I think it took me a month to get out of that.
Probably a little longer.
It was longer than that?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, my God. I mean, I was just, everything was just stupid. I just felt like I couldn't do anything right. And so, but it was all because of that one word that was spoken. See, so one word can literally change a person's core.
That's good.
And so we got to watch our words. We got to watch, is it bringing life to the situation or is it literally taken away? You know, I mean, we got to really watch our words, man. The words is powerful. You know, think about it. The words are so powerful. It takes breath, right, to breathe, to do a word, right? Mm-hmm. Well, and I'm just flowing, y'all, so I don't even know where this is going, but for some reason, I just feel it. But anyway, what did God do with Adam and Eve, or Adam rather, Adam? What he did is he breathed the breath of life into him. You see what I'm saying? So what I believe he was doing is everything that was in him, he was breathing it into him. So when you breathe the words out of your mouth into the atmosphere, then we are designed to receive. God created us to be able to receive. You know what I'm saying? And so that's why you have to really be responsible for the choices of words that you use. You can take back, verbally, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. You could take that in the instance back, but you can't take it what the
impact.
eternal or the everlasting effect that thing has. So you got to watch our words. I mean, we are Christians, and some of the Christians are cursing. And cursing, when you curse, think about the word curse. You basically done put a curse on a person.
You put a curse on yourself too, because you're snared by
You
the words.
snare
of
by
your
the
mouth.
words of your mouth. So we got to watch what we say with our mouth. It cuts more than a gun. It can destroy you more than like quick.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got to tame this mouth and watch what we say and make sure, like he said, it's catchable. The communication is catchable. Can they catch? If I say a hard thing, is it undergirded by love? So that's what we was talking about, with the whole sarcasm and stuff. A lot of times, like he said, he's trying to give a truth, but because he feels like maybe people can't handle it or whatever, he found a way to water it down. But the thing about it, what'd you say?
Not a good way.
Not a good way, right? But the thing about it is, a truth can be shared if it's undergirded by love. See, because what happens is if a truth is shared undergirded by love, they don't really hear so much of the truth that you really wanted them to get. They hear the love.
That's good.
And it takes love to be able to share a truth that is uncomfortable. Because how many of y'all have had to share a truth that was uncomfortable? And so what happens is when you allow love to be the guiding force of that truth, well, now you're going to watch what you say. You're going to govern what you're going to say. You're going to actually choose words that's going to be more palatable. You know what I mean? You're going to use words that's going to smooth or soften the blow even. You know what I'm saying? And still get the truth out.
That's good.
And so that's why love has got to be essential in all of our lives. The fruits of the Spirit is another thing that we got to really embrace, because the fruits of the Spirit, if we cultivate that, it will keep us out of danger when it comes to communicating. Because the Holy Spirit he wants us to actually operate in the fruits of the Spirit, which is patience.
Love, joy, peace, long suffering.
Right.
Patience, goodness, gentleness, meekness, temperance, self-control.
And we need all of that to be able to flow. And I had something on that, but I'll share that maybe at another time. But, it's crucial, and it's so crucial that we watch the words that are coming out of our mouth.
The thing is, we want to avoid expressive language, because expressive language surpasses accusatory language. See, what is prompting the person you're communicating to get defensive? Accusatory language or assumed intent. And so, again, that wisdom just has us package everything different, like Pastor Mel was saying. And it's when we use wisdom, it's an inviting and empowering language. The thing in every relationship, we always talk about this in premarital, everybody should have a voice and everybody should have a choice. But if you think about it, if you're domineering and you shut down a person's voice, that's not empowering, that's not inviting. People are not designed to store stuff, especially in their emotions. It's going to come out. Yeah. It's going to come out later and greater. Mm-hmm. It's going to be an explosion. How people talk about, how we grow, and sometimes we don't like confrontation. But we talked about this last week, or maybe Wednesday. We have to watch false peace, because true communication is Ephesians 4:15, speaking the truth in love. Right?
That's good. And what's so good about that is a lot of things was going on in the mind. So a lot of times we have these thoughts and these conversations and everything in the mind. And if we don't regulate our mind, the scripture talks about be renewed in your mind, right? But then it talks about being renewed in the spirit of your mind. So what happens is, if we do not have our mind under control, then what follows after we think it, then it comes out in our words. So it's important that because what happens is, you ever talk to somebody and it's like, now you saying something to me one way, but there's some more stuff. You ever, like, okay, you're not saying something. As a matter of fact, it's a big piece that you're not sharing, but you're trying to communicate something to me, but you're not giving me the whole thought. You understand what I'm saying? The whole thought. And so sometimes we give people half our mind, just a little bit of our mind. And what we don't realize is that piece that we're holding on is the very piece that's needed to correct the situation. But because of fear, like you talked about, intimidation and things of that nature, we dare not share it. But actually, those secret thoughts, y'all, those secret thoughts, and we all have them. We have a tendency of having these secret thoughts. That's not healthy. Because even when you try to avoid it, it's going to come out. But then it's going to cause confusion because you're saying one thing with your mouth, but your actions is showing something different. Because your actions basically is lining up with your thought, not with your words. You see what I'm saying? Do y'all get what I'm trying to say here? Mm-hmm. So we got to watch, have a guard over not just your heart, but your mind. Don't allow the devil to use it as a playground and play out all these different thoughts. And you think that you're the only one that knows the thought.
Thanks for tuning in to today's broadcast. To view videos or make donations, feel free to access our website at www.heirscc.org. Remember, at Heirs, we believe we're just what you prayed for.